In news this week, church leaders concerned over children in detention report. New research debunks the myth that a little alcohol is good for you. And America's largest Christian bookstore chain files for bankruptcy.
This is InFocus Christian News and Current Affairs.
Hello, welcome to Record in Focus. It's fantastic to have you along for the ride. I'm Kent Kingston, and preparing her best news reading voice is Sibel Coutet. How are you, Sibel?
Good, thanks, Kent. This is the news, this is the news, this is the news. What's happening on the program today, Kent?
Well, we got a great program for you coming up. James Standish will be in, talking up religious freedom, as he does. Trafford Fisher examines that common belief that marriage is just a piece of paper, and we'll meet a photographer who says he was significantly impacted by his travels to the developing world with international aid agency ADRA.
I hope he brings in some photos.
Yeah, me too. Well, it's time for the news now, but I'm sorry to say, Sibel, it's a really awful story that we're starting our bulletin with today, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Kent. In an horrific video posted online, militants claiming loyalty to the Islamic State terror group have beheaded 21 Egyptian Christian hostages in Libya. For some weeks, Egyptians have been protesting the kidnappings, demanding that their government take action to rescue the hostages. According to news.com.au, the militants made their religious motivations clear, saying the killings are a message to crusaders and nations of the cross. In response, Egypt declared 7 days of mourning. A report on the plight of children in immigration detention has triggered heated political debate, as well as statements of concern from Australian church leaders. The Forgotten Children report from Australia's Human Rights Commission outlines the mental and emotional distress experienced by minors in immigration detention. Over a period of 15 months, 233 physical assaults involving children were recorded, as well as 33 sexual assaults. Both the Uniting and Anglican churches have spoken out about the issues the report raises. Sydney Anglican Archbishop Dr. Glenn Davies says the political bickering has got in the way of what should be a bipartisan debate. The common belief that a little alcohol is good for you has taken another hit from a major study published by the British Medical Journal. A number of previous studies appear to show that occasional drinkers live longer than non-drinkers, but the new study found that evidence of the protective effect of alcohol all but vanished when former drinkers were taken out of the sample. The researchers suggest that poor health has caused many former drinkers to give up the grog and then drag down the average life expectancy of the non-drinking group.
We're still convinced that alcohol is a toxic substance. Even if there's little elements of protective resveratrol, for example, it's not a smart way to get it. I think the case for abstinence is much, much stronger than any case you could ever build for moderation.
As church organisations and other institutions are facing criticism during Australia's Royal Commission, Roman Catholic leaders in Papua New Guinea and Solomon Islands have released a new sexual abuse complaints policy. According to the ABC, the policy encourages victims to come forward and outlines clear steps for investigating claims of abuse. Church leaders say reporting abuse in Melanesian cultures is difficult, as there is an unwillingness to criticise authority figures or shame the church.
People are very reticent to bring claims against a body like the church or a priest, and more particularly in rural areas, and this is what we're concerned about. We're aware that obviously problems do happen in rural areas. It's probably more easier to cover them up, and yet we're trying to help people become aware of these issues, the importance of them, the need to deal with them, and the need to open up about them.
A free medical outreach service is providing for health needs in some of Port Moresby's most disadvantaged areas. An initiative of the Filipino Adventist community, the City Healthcare Clinic takes doctors, dentists and other volunteers to churches of different denominations every month. At the churches, one of which is in Port Moresby's Bamana prison, the health professionals provide free assessment and treatment for a range of health issues. The group is excited about the impact they're having and have plans to expand the program. And still in the Pacific, training has begun for radio announcers and producers to bring gospel messages to the people of Solomon Islands and Vanuatu. The initial training event was coordinated by Adventist World Radio, together with local church leaders in Solomon Islands' capital, Honiara. According to the Solomon Star, 27 radio hopefuls attended the training, with organisers saying the first new radio station should be on air within 6 months. In a shock for the Christian retail industry, America's largest Christian bookstore franchise has filed for bankruptcy, saying it has been overwhelmed by debt.
So the question is, how did we get into this position? The first is the recession of 08 and 09 that hit so many businesses in this country and others so hard. The second is the digital revolution. Books and music and movies are being purchased in different ways these days. And the last is that the company took on too much debt.
Family Christian Stores has 266 shop fronts across the USA, which it hopes it will be allowed by the courts to keep open while it tries to get back on its feet. The violence-torn nation of Nigeria has postponed general and presidential elections for 6 weeks. With authorities concerned, voters will be attacked by Boko Haram extremists. According to Christian Today, church leaders have welcomed the delay, saying that security needs to be assured and there will now be more time for everyone to receive their voting cards. But the Seventh-day Adventist Church has warned that its members will not be participating in the Sabbath elections, the day when, in obedience to the Bible, Adventists typically do not engage in civic or business activities. Despite repeated requests, the government has refused to move the elections to another day of the week or to make provisions for those who have religious or other objections to voting on a Saturday. A German toy company has been surprised by the popularity of its latest plastic figurine of Martin Luther. Playmobil figurines are a common sight in German kids' bedrooms and kindergartens. But the Martin Luther figurines exceeded all expectations, with 34,000 of them selling out in just 72 hours. Awareness of Martin Luther's place in history is growing as the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation approaches. 2017 marks 5 centuries since the dissident monk nailed his 95 Theses to the Wittenberg Cathedral door. And that's the news for this week. Do you remember those Playmobil toys, Kent?
I do have a vague memory of them, yeah, but by the sound of it, they're maybe more popular in Europe than maybe they are here in Australia.
I don't remember seeing much of them around growing up, but maybe they were more popular on the continent.
Yeah, it could be. You know, I always had this impression that Europe is very secular, you know, Northern Europe in particular, but...
When a toy sells out like that, there's got to be more to the story.
Yeah, you got to wonder. Hey, there's more to this week's In Focus program too, of course. Stay with us. We'll be back with Freedom in Focus straight after the break.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Hi, welcome back, and it's great to have you with us again, James.
Great to be back, Ken.
First time for 2015.
Well, I guess it is, isn't it?
Yeah, and it'd be nice if our story was a happy, light, celebratory story.
It never
is. No, the situation for religious freedom is quite dire right now, isn't it?
It is. 2015 has started off as a very, very serious and a difficult year for religious freedom, particularly in the Middle East, particularly with the attacks that are occurring by ISIS and their followers around the world, but particularly in around the Middle Eastern countries.
But today you wanted to talk to us about, I guess, reflecting on this religious freedom situation. A lot of people are reflecting on it, including US President Obama. Yeah,
interesting. There was a poll out that was just done this week, which looked at the American people's reaction to President Obama's prayer breakfast speech. Now, you wouldn't think a prayer breakfast speech would be controversial. You'd go there.
Until Ben Carson.
Until Ben Carson.
Yeah.
Well, apparently now it's a new tradition.
Yeah.
And President Obama, when he was giving his speech, made what many people are calling a moral equivalency between what ISIS is doing to Christians right now in the Middle East to historic crimes of Christians many, many centuries ago.
Well, that's fair enough, isn't it, James? I mean, sometimes people lump, Islam with violence. It's a violent religion. It's a terrible religion. We Christians are so much better. Surely we should be reminded that, wait a minute, in its past, Christianity has been a violent religion.
That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it, and this is the way that 50% of Americans who responded to a poll said what President Obama said was inappropriate. Only just a little over 30% thought it was okay. And I think the reason for that, Ken, isn't because people are in denial about history. It's because of context. Right now we have a genocide going on against Christians. True. Is this really the time that the President of the United States should be up lecturing Christians about their past, transgressions?
And therefore minimising or justifying in some way the violence that's happening right now?
That is exactly the way that people have taken it. Also, in the State of the Union address, which was just a few weeks before, in that State of the Union address, President Obama listed out persecuted groups. He talked about anti-Semitism, he talked about Islamophobia, he talked about crimes against gay, lesbian, bisexual and transgender people. There's one group President Obama did not mention.
Possibly the group that's actually the most persecuted religion in the world today?
The most persecuted religion in the world today. And to me, and that of course is Christians, just in case you're in any doubt, you can just check on that. Christians are under pressure all over the globe, but particularly, as we're mentioning, by ISIS. And I think the question is this. This has happened in the last few years. What kind of leadership are we seeing from the leader of the greatest country, the most powerful country on earth? For the first term of President Obama's presidency, he had an ambassador at large for international religious freedom who was not well qualified for that position. That was brought up to him. I brought up to his staff.
And you mentioned that there's now a new one who's
There's a new one who's great.
Yep.
Rabbi David Saperstein, someone who I know well, who's going to do a great job. But guess what? You only get to be president in 8 years. He's starting. There's only a couple of years to go, and the opportunity cost
not a lot of time to get runs on the board.
So when President Obama gets up, within this context, at this particular time, and makes this particular comment, you can understand why some Christians look at that and say, that's just not appropriate. Not right now, not at this time, not unless you have the runs on the board to show that you have really stood up against the persecution of Christians at this absolutely critical juncture.
Wow. Okay, well, thanks for that, James. It's very, very sobering, but yeah, thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
We'll go now to Family in Focus.
Well, to marry or not to marry is the million-dollar question. Thanks for being with us, Trav.
Thank you, Danny.
So tell me, is it just a bit of paper?
A lot of people think it is, and I guess it is. I've done it many times. I've had the joy of marrying couples and I, but now here's your certificate, hang this on the wall. Yeah? But the research keeps telling us it's more than a bit of paper. There's something about signing that paper in public. It's got more than, it's not just a bit of paper. It brings something else with it. Yeah.
What do you think that is, Trav? Like, I remember I lived with my husband before we were married for a number of years, and I tell you what, we went on our honeymoon and we were booking into a motel, and it was really interesting. Mark referred to me for the first time, my wife, and there was something
happened for you.
I can't explain it. There was just something, a chord struck, and it was like almost the seriousness of what we'd just done in a good way,
Isn't
a respect.
Yeah. I think you're touching on it. There's something about, I think, commitment that keeps coming through. Let me share, there was a Journal of Marriage and Family, a later study, where they were trying to look at what was the difference between same-sex couples and married heterosexual couples and their marriages, because the general belief was that same-sex couples' marriages or relationships wouldn't last as long.
Yeah.
They did some research and found that generally not true. And what they did, and I wanted to read this to you, Dan, it says married couples are dramatically more likely to stay connected than unmarried couples at all levels of relationship quality and at all relationship durations.
That's very interesting, isn't it?
It seems to fit with what you're saying. That bit of paper has something to say about we're going to sustain this journey. Now, we know not all couples do, of course, but there does. It says, marriage is a uniquely important predictor of couple stability for both heterosexual and same-sex couples. So there's something that just keeps coming through that says, hey, when we sign that bit of paper, we're signing up for, for a long time. And is it an anchor? It appears to be an anchor of some kind, Danny. It says, hey, we're going to sustain this relationship.
Do you think there's a difference at what point people make that commitment, Trafford? As far as living together first, not living together, being too young?
I think it is. They're talking about drift at the moment, where couples drift into marriage because they're already living together, and they sort of just drift rather than making a firm decision. And I think maybe that's all tied in there together. They make a decision, they make that commitment, and it just seems to do something for them. It's an anchoring point. Yeah, it's more than a bit of paper.
So I guess, Traff, the take-home message for those couples out there that may be teeter-tottering on whether they should get the bit of paper or not, talk about it, make a firm decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
Fabulous.
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break.
Signs of the Times, a magazine for a world on the brink. And this month in Signs, can you believe in a God that science cannot prove exists? Eat like a caveman or quit sugar. We review the latest diet trends, 50 Shades of Grey. First the novel, now the movie. And we answer life's big question, why are we here? All in this month's Signs of the Times. Subscribe to Signs today and change your life.
Discover some of these artists from Salter Music. Anna Weatherup.
Oh, people get ready for the train to Jordan.
Castles in Air.
Like watchmen wait for the morning light.
Eric and Monique.
You alone are my strength, my refuge.
Sapphire.
His love reached the bottom of the ocean.
No matter what shade of musical taste you have, you might just find something that sings to you. It's all waiting to be discovered at saltermusic.com. Fresh and exciting original Christian music from Salter Music.
Hi, welcome back. Well, just over a year ago, Cyclone Haiyan slammed into the Philippines. More than 5,000 people died, 10 million people affected, and just a few days after that, Jeff White was there on the ground. How are you, Jeff?
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, but that wouldn't have looked too excellent, though, I imagine, at the time.
No, it was destruction and mayhem on a grand scale. Public buildings destroyed, people's livelihoods, and obviously a lot of death. Fortunately for us, most of that had been. We arrived about day 10.
Okay.
So
dead bodies had been removed by then, and
correct.
The clean-up was beginning already.
Yeah, people are remarkably resilient.
Wow.
And they were already, pulling their lives together.
Yep.
Much better than would happen in a first world country like ours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were there volunteering. You'd been asked at short notice to come to the Philippines by the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, ADRA.
Correct.
But you were volunteering, is that right?
That's correct, yeah. I have acquaintances that work in ADRA, and my name sort of came to their notice when they needed a photographer. Everything fell into place. When God wants you to go somewhere, He makes it happen.
And so there you were with this beast?
Yes, yes.
Oh, it is a monster, isn't it?
Yeah.
Goodness me. So, why? I mean, obviously the news media were there, early taking photos for
Correct.
But why did they need a photographer?
ADRA sent Braden Blyde, who's ADRA staff. He's an accomplished journalist. And so he was writing the stories, and rather than put pressure on him to have to also find the photographs, I was sent to be sidekick basically and record some images.
Because let's face it, a disaster is a very visual story, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, the supporting images are often very, very powerful, and a picture tells 1,000 words.
Yeah, boy. Did any particular images stand out of in your mind? Maybe ones that you captured, or maybe ones that as just in your mind?
There are many stories. The coastal fringe was the worst hit, and there were many families affected, but the one that really stood out to me the most was a guy who lost his wife recently before the disaster. He had 10 children.
Wow.
Their house was completely destroyed. The adjacent house was also completely destroyed by one concrete wall. And they'd found some tin and leaned it up against the concrete wall. And they were all living in that space. And basically exposed to the elements. They had no food. His boat had been destroyed. Their boats are fairly crude fishing boats without riggers. And so he had no means of earning an income. No food and all these mouths to feed. And it really tugs at your heartstrings to see that kind of thing. But ADRA were there. They'd provided him rice.
Okay.
And,
so those emergency supplies.
Correct. Clean water. Something to carry the water in. And, obviously the hygiene and sanitation kit, which basically gave them washing powder and a towel and, women's sanitary products and all the other bits and pieces that you need to live.
Just those few small things can make so much difference, can't
Correct,
they?
yeah. It was interesting that the washing powder was something that was a big hit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow. So you were there not just to document the disaster and the damage and destruction, you were also there documenting the relief effort, is that
correct,
right?
Yeah. We one of the main tasks that we were set was to actually document the process of identifying individuals that needed the assistance in the local barangays, and then the actual distribution when that happened. And we've got obviously great photos of people lining up with their ticket in hand, ready for the delivery of their aid.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So, you sort of wonder sometimes, if you give a donation to some international aid organisation, you wonder, well, where does that money really go? Does it, get frittered into, advertising and consultants and all this sort of stuff you hear about? Did you see evidence of donor money on the ground there? I mean, you mentioned, care packs, which obviously, a couple of bucks each. But
one of the wonderful things about ADRA is the way they make fantastic use of the funds that they've got. One of the things that was awesome to see was a semi-trailer arrived with all of the wash kits aboard. It was they were basically thousands. I think it was something like 4,000 20-litre drums.
Oh wow!
And the truck arrived at near midnight, and all of a sudden there must have been near 100 people from the local church arrived and unloaded the semi in about 20 minutes.
So these are people who are possibly being affected by the cyclone themselves?
Absolutely, they were affected. And that semi-trailer was unloaded and into the warehouse in no time. They then also assisted in filling those containers with the toothpaste and the toothbrushes and the towels and all those things that go to
the individual packs.
So an enormous amount of labour, free and gratis. Also, ADRA are able to pump some money back into the communities for paid work for some of these tasks as well, which kickstarts the economy and gets things rolling again.
Wow. I know you don't work for ADRA, you were just there volunteering, but have you heard, I mean, this is more than a year ago now, was that sort of it, give emergency supplies leave, or is ADRA still involved in some way?
My understanding is that ADRA is still involved in a couple of the different clusters there, one of which is the food security and the hygiene.
Okay, so on ongoing help with those sort of things.
Correct.
And I mean, you mentioned people on the coast, fishing boats destroyed, that sort of stuff. Is there any effort being made to help people sort of re-establish a livelihood or rebuild homes?
One of ADRA's big contributions when they were in there assessing the needs originally was the need to get the boats back in the water.
Yeah.
So these guys could actually then get back to work and provide for their families.
There's a fishing community, so
yeah, it's basically where all the fresh seafood comes from the Philippines, is that area in Cavite.
Yeah.
And so they've basically put programs where they're providing materials to repair boats. A lot of the boats were not completely destroyed but were damaged and they needed to repair. And I believe they've also been involved in teaching people the boat building skills.
Okay, well, there you go.
Providing,
so the work goes on.
materials.
Well, that's really good to hear. So we're just about out of time already. I was going to ask you about Nepal, but I don't think we're going to be able to get there. But as of a volunteer, is this the sort of thing you'd consider doing again at some point?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sounds pretty traumatic to me. I mean, spiritually, emotionally, and in a lot of different ways.
It's a way that you can give back. I would encourage anybody that wants to contribute to do so by volunteering. I've got a particular set of skills. I've got a nursing background, and this has prepared me for doing that work.
Some sort of extreme environments.
Correct.
Yeah, human suffering.
And so I would do it again in a heartbeat. It's really fulfilling work, and I was privileged to be able to be a part of it.
Now, ADRA's actually got a bit of a push on at the minute for their disaster and famine relief projects. So if you would like to visit their website, adra.org.au, you can check out the projects that they're doing there, find out any information and see if you want to volunteer or support in other ways. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you after the break.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. That's just part of what makes it all so amazing. And that's why a great education matters. Because it doesn't just help you get a great job, it helps you prepare for what life can throw at you and live a great life. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Thousands of years ago, a series of ancient prophecies were disguised within a system of mysterious symbols. For centuries, these remarkable predictions have been sealed to the world until now. Check out our new Secrets of Prophecy online course today in 24 beautifully illustrated free studies at www.itiswrittenoceania.tv or call 1300 300 389 for your free copy today.
Hello, thanks so much for watching this week. Please don't forget to keep the conversation going via email and social media.
Yes, we love seeing your feedback. Our email address is letters@infocus.org.au. We're on Facebook at record.mag and my Twitter handle is at recordinfocus.
Stay in touch.
Yeah, please do. It's been great having your company this week. We'll see you next time on Record in Focus.
God bless.